Thank you everyone for showing up and taking time out of your busy schedules. And this is the first conference of the year. Everyone's excited, energetic, got your 2023 budget approved, and now go out and execute on the plans. And then we'll panic when we meet in Helsinki later this year and about all the stuff that didn't happen. But hopefully I can help you with your subscription if that's what you're talking about. Just to explain a bit more what we do. I think we're on the last slide. So can we go to the first slide? I think this is the last slide. Yeah, we're starting on the last slide. But anyways, let me introduce myself while we're reversing the slides here. I'm Teis. I'm the founder and CEO of Multiscription. As mentioned, the company behind Unleashed, which is our subscription service for mobile games focused on free-to-play. So my own background is actually in game development. So those of you who work in game development or publishing, I used to be on your side of the table. Now I moved to this side of the table, this side of the microphone, you could say, to talk about monetization. So I worked with IO Interactive, worked on the Hitman franchise as a producer on that. You're probably the most familiar game from them. I worked with Movie Star Planet as a chief product officer there on the online game for kids. And then if there are any Swiss people in the crowd, you'll know this horrible logo. It's a company called Ricardo.ch. It's an online marketplace. I put that in there because it's very relevant for what we're going to talk about. Firstly, just to get the sort of the Unleashed part out of the way so you know why I'm talking or why we sort of claim to know what we're talking about, is Unleashed. And that's our subscription service for mobile games. It's currently live on Android. We have 22 games live right now. And the way it works is that it works by integrating the subscription into the game instead of putting the game into the subscription. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We then make partnerships with developers who then work with us on identifying what kind of benefits to give to subscribers and then become part of the network and become part of the service. I won't go into too much detail about that. You're very welcome to either ask questions afterwards or drop by our booth downstairs and talk more about specifically how Unleashed can help you. So, to move on to the topic, the in-game subscriptions. One thing that's important to understand as we get into the topic is the difference between an in-game subscription and, let's say, other kinds of subscription. First one, there's these, I actually call them publisher subscriptions, even though you might say, what Apple Arcade, how is that a publisher subscription? Well, it's a type of subscription where your game is being brought into another company's publishing, publishing arm. So when you put your game on Apple Arcade, it's actually Apple publishing your game, right? You don't have your own store anymore, your own store page. The same with Netflix. Netflix is a publisher of games. There's nothing wrong with these two services. Great services, great games. One of my favorite games the last few years actually is What the Golf. It's an Apple Arcade. I highly recommend it. It's a great game. But it's very different. It works very differently from what I'm talking about, the in-game subscription. Because as a publisher or developer, when you put your game into these services, you don't work with them that much. You sort of they do the work for you, so to speak. I know there's some live ops, especially in arcade, but still. Another one is the subscription stores. Some of our good friends here on the screen. Again, this is where you put your game into a subscription store, and you're typically not dealing with them yourself on a daily basis. You don't have to, figure out what to put in, what not to put in. Great companies as well. Go check them out if that's your thing. And a lot of them work in tertiary markets and sort of additional revenue outside of your primary markets. So, getting back to what the benefits are of an in-game subscription beyond, of course, the revenue. The first one is retention. And retention is, I think, going to be the key metric then in the coming years for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's because we see the user acquisition problems. I don't go into all the details here because I think we all know the problems, right? With both Google and Apple, it's making very, very difficult for publishers and developers to find the right users and to track the users in the way where they can sort of do the math on basically making the calculations on the user and the return on investment. We've also seen as part of this, but also separately, the rise in UA costs. And we still have the problem with it's really hard to get your game. It's really hard for the players to find your game, especially now after you see the likes of Apple Arcade and Google Play Pass, because they now also take up space. Like Apple takes up space promoting Apple Arcade, and then you have all the typical games you always see in the feature charts or in the top charts. And that means there's just less space for everyone else. So retention is going to be important because when the user acquisition lifetime cycle that has been this perfect symbiosis you've seen over the last couple of years, maybe 10 years, that's now being broken down because it doesn't really work anymore. So now instead of putting the players into, let's say, a leaking bucket, you're going to focus more on retaining the players that you already brought in. And subscription will help you with this. And I'm not just talking about Unleashed. We, of course, think we can help you a lot. But this is something that you see across the board. I mean, you see it probably yourself. Let's take it outside of games. Let's talk about Saturday night, you want to watch a movie. Well, you go to Disney Plus or HBO or Netflix, whichever you've already paid for. You don't go to Blockbuster anymore to rent a movie. Case in point, right? Because you go to where you already paid. The reason for that is when you feel like you already spent, you don't want to spend again. You also feel a closer connection to the service. This might sound counterintuitive, but that's actually that's how we work. If we're paid into something, it now becomes our brand. Now we feel that, okay, now I'm engaged in this brand in a different way than I was before when I didn't pay for it, which means that you are more likely to come back. So if you have a subscription in your game, the players will feel they're more likely to come back to your game compared to any other game where you just had a number of in-app purchases. Having sold an in-app purchase, as you probably know, is still a good indicator of whether or not the player is going to come back. Once you've made the first purchase, it's the hardest one, they're more likely to come back, and they're more likely to spend more. But with a subscription, they're actually more likely to be retained. Yeah, put in this all-you-can-eat buffet. It's the kind of idea when you see people at a buffet, right, and they just stack, dish upon dish, all they can have because they paid for it, so they're going to get the max out of it. It's the same we do with our Apple Arcade, Unleashed, or Netflix subscriptions. You basically don't want to lose out on what you've already paid for. Another related bonus to this is that once you have people in your subscription, it's actually easier to reactivate them to come back and get the benefits of them because you can remind them of the benefits they're getting. You can always remind players to come back to a game. You have a new event, or you have a new theme out, you have new levels, whatever you do. But that's more things that they don't really own yet. But you remind them of things they already have that's just waiting for them. It's a bit like the Battle Pass idea, right? Subscription is very linked to a Battle Pass or Season Pass. It's not necessarily the same thing, but there's some of the same mechanics. You remind them there's something waiting for you when you come back. Another one, and this one I could do a whole talk on, this is subscription builds community. It's extremely interesting, and I think it's something that we're just scratching the surface of right now. It's when you have a subscription service, as I said, when you have a subscription in your game, you build a closer connection to the game, to the brand. You become more, more engaged in it. You start feeling ownership of the brand, and actually you become a brand ambassador. There's people who will argue which service is better, Netflix or Disney Plus, which is a weird discussion to have because you should really be discussing which shows are the best. But you start comparing now, and now people get this brand loyalty. It used to be, are you an HBO person or a Netflix person? I'm HBO, okay, you're a little bit posh, right? You watch the fancy, artsy movies. I'm more of a mainstream Netflix guy myself. And that's the sort of brand loyalty that's being built over the community, over time with this. And the interesting thing is, because people keep coming back and start building an sort of affiliation with the brand, you can also start building a community on top of that. So usually we see it the other way around. We see that you start with the community and then you add subscription features on top to monetize that community. You probably do that in your games as well. You build up a great game, then you build a community on top of the game, and then you maybe build some features to monetize that community you already built. But with subscription, we start seeing things the other way around. So some examples of the first thing I talked about, Twitter and Discord. They started out as communities, broadly speaking. They started out as communities, and then there were premium features added on top that you could subscribe to and get benefits. But really now, it's the reversal. This is what we are building with Unleashed, and this is, we can see it other services as well. You start by having people create an attachment to the brand, a reason to come back, and then you can build the community and add community features on that. Another benefit, I sort of said beyond revenue. This is also revenue, you could say, but it's different from the recurring revenue you normally think about, which as part of the subscription. Because when we talk about this track, by the way, I should introduce the track a little bit since we're sponsoring it. We created this recurring revenue track because we feel that there should be more focus on subscription, not just for us, but also for the other great companies you saw on the screen before. And we also saw that there's a lot of, desire for more information. I can tell you I've been doing these talks for a couple of years now, and we used to be able to only fill like two rows here, I think. And I'm very thankful for Apple Arcade, actually. I thank them a lot because they created a new room for me, basically, to stand here and talk to you. Was it not for Apple Arcade, we would still only, maybe we'd be 3 rows deep now, but that would be it. So everyone's talking about subscription in mobile games now, and that's thanks to Apple Arcade and now Netflix as well. So that's why we created this track to explain, okay, subscription is actually more than just recurring revenue. It has a lot of other things in it as well. And I'm just going to plug the panel that's going to be here 2023 that I'm moderating, where we have some really interesting panelists talking about how they see the future of subscriptions and the benefits for you guys. So anyways, going back to the sort of revenue, but not revenue. So it's not the recurring revenue that you thought about, but it's additional revenue. One thing we always recommend is that you have in-app purchases in your game, even though you add subscription in-game. We usually say that it should rest on 3 legs, your monetization. Ads, for those who can't or for some reason won't pay anything. Then you have in-app purchase for those who are most comfortable with that, which is still the largest majority, let's be honest about that, but shrinking. And then lastly, subscription for those who are moving in that direction from movies and music, etc. And what actually happens is that people, once they start subscribing, they actually start spending more. I realize this headline is a bit misleading. It should be they're spending sort of twice because they're also spending on in-app purchase. But this is some interesting data. It's actually a few years old now from SuperData about how people start spending more after they subscribe. And it's very, very important, the cause and effect here. They don't subscribe because already spent. You can ask the same question to Amazon. This is basically the whole concept of Amazon Prime. They see that once people become Prime members, they start spending more. It's not the other way around. It's not because you're a big spender and then you become a subscriber. And the reason for this is, as we talked about in the first slides about retention, right? You already paid, so now you want to get something out of it. For your Amazon Prime membership, it's like, I have free shipping, but that's only worth something if I start buying something, so I better start buying more toilet paper or whatever it is to get something for my free shipping. The same thing we see with games happening is that now I'm already spent, so that's basically a new threshold you created. So if you put in an in-game subscription, you're just increasing the baseline of your revenue, and then you can sell on top. Remember, you still have ads to those who don't subscribe, and you can still sell your in-app purchase on top. We always recommend that people do this. We always recommend. Another reason for this is you have your big spenders, and they're always going to be there. And you need to give them something to buy. They want to invest in your game. I remember playing one of my favorite games, PC, called Crusader Kings 2. Great game. I loved the game. I played the heck out of that game. I wanted to buy more. I couldn't. There wasn't anything I could buy. It was a premium game. I was looking at the sort of Paradox website and see, is there anything I can buy from this company that I don't know? I have Iron Cross and I have all the others. What can I do? The only thing I could do was actually just, I found their bank account on the website and the corporate page, and I could transfer the money. That's all I could do to spend more on the game that I love so much. Don't do that. Don't be like that. I mean, great company, great game, but give me a way to spend more on your game. Please, I want to spend on it because I really enjoy it. Also, you can't make a subscription service that caters for everyone. That's another thing, because you have people with different spending abilities in your game. So that's a way to create a baseline in subscription and then sell in-app purchases on top. I've covered this already. So it's after signing up. So when you go back and you do your Excel sheets, you can calculate this in how much. Impossible to say, but this is something that you're probably going to be challenged with when you present this at home. This is again, look at. I think Ubisoft or Microsoft. I think it's Ubisoft. They talk about it as well. Once people start subscribing, maybe it was Microsoft. I forget. One of the two, that they see the same on consoles. Once people start becoming a subscriber, they spend more. As I said, lots of opportunities for upsell in that. Again, I don't have time. I have a whole talk about this, actually, from Pocket Gamer that I will go into. Drop down our booth. I would love to dive more into details about what kind of benefits you should sell as an upsell in the game. So yeah, beyond the revenue, the benefits we talked about, retention, people come back to where they already spent, the community, building community on top of subscription and not the other way around. And then upselling, give people a way to spend more in your game. As I said, we have a wealth of resources on our website, so go and check that out. This is some of them. These are either talks or blogs, and actually we have a whole blog on top of this where you can read more or watch more about the different benefits. Lots of different stuff there. So thank you very much for taking the time to drop by. Hope you have a great conference, and now we have time for a few questions.
Any questions? If you can just put your hand up so I can bring you the mic. Everyone? Oh, we got one here.
When you're saying about different like payment methods that you can use for the player.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Obviously, there's a lot of really good like ways to get players to spend more. But like, what would be obviously right now it's battle passes. But if you could predict a way that players could like spend more money on your game, what would it be? Would it be like something like DLC or like certain currency in the game?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is like, what's the best way to earn a good amount of money from your game and from your project?
First of all, I think the best way to make money on your players is to offer them something they want to buy. There's a whole, topic around dark pattern and how to say about benefits. Some things actually help you, where you're just creating annoying obstacles that you want people to pay for. I think it's again longer topic. Offer them something that actually brings them happiness, and not just something that removes friction that you created from them. That's the first thing. Second thing, I think the Battle Pass is extremely strong mechanic. I think it's one of the strongest ones we've seen, and there's a reason why I think it's like 90% of the top 15 grossing games all have a Battle Pass or similar mechanic. I would probably link the Battle Pass with a subscription, so make an in-game subscription that has Battle Pass-like mechanics. And then to answer the last part of your question, what to upsell? That completely depends on the game. There's no there's no right or wrong for this, but one thing you could say is that one thing that's wrong to put in a subscription is soft currency. So if you put in if you have a subscription, you put in soft currency, and you give 1,000 coins once a month, you get the 1,000 coins, and then you leave. You could do it as a daily allowance, but maybe not all games work well with the daily allowance in the game of the 1,000 coins. So you could sell those on top as in-app purchases, for example, alongside the subscription. I hope that answered the question. Otherwise, booth downstairs, come down and have a chat.
We might have time for one more quick question if anyone's got a pressing question.
There's one over here.
Oh, hang on.
I could just yell it. How many months is a good target for a subscription?
How many months is a good target for a subscription? Again, it depends so much on the game. I can say ours is a monthly subscription and is recurring. So people sign up and they, stay on. I would say there's a huge difference again between hyper-casual. We have some hyper-casual games on, and we have some, I think it's almost 10-year-old, really, really solid, award-winning games on that have very small amount of users, but they stay. It's almost impossible to give like an average of what is if you mean like retention of subscribers, is that what you mean? Yeah, it's impossible to say. It's impossible to say because the games are so different. The games are so different.